You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanwatco Trillo. It's thumbs down again for President Bongbong Marcos on the scenario of cooperating with the ICC's probe on the previous administration's drug war. This comes weeks after the ICC announced that it is resuming its investigation on the extrajudicial killings under the Duterte presidency. These were mostly done during the former president's drug war. Marcos earlier said his government is not interested in rejoining the tribunal.
We are not colonies anymore of these former imperialists. So that is not something that we consider to be a legitimate judgment.
Let's go straight to the source of this story. ICC Assistant to Counsel Kristina Conti is here with us. Attorney, good morning.
Good morning, Ria.
Now, first, we'd like to get your reaction on President Bongbong Marcos saying that he cannot cooperate with the ICC probe on the Duterte administration's war on drugs. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's a matter of ability. If you say can or cannot, I don't think I disagree entirely with what he's saying, or he has been saying since, I guess, time immemorial. This government has said that it cannot the executive department has said it cannot participate in the probe. However, we have the Supreme Court ruling that we should. We can actually participate in the probe by just signifying that we will be submitting documents, we will be sharing information with the ICC, just to the extent of investigation, if that is necessary. I do think that these pronouncements are premature in a sense. Taken together with the legislative efforts to shield specifically President Duterte from accountability, I think this is really a whole of nation approach to saying that we will not cooperate because we will protect President Duterte. Of course, that will not be tenable for the international community.
Right. Speaking of protecting the former president, the Senate and House of Representatives filed resolutions supporting former President Duterte against the ICC probe. From a legal standpoint, does this carry any weight at all?
No, that's a political branch of government. That's the legislative or lawmaking branch speaking for a judicial independent body or a judicial proceeding. So in this case, them saying that President Duterte deserves the protection of the Senate or of Philippine government is uncalled for and should not be, taken by our government. We do note again, I'll call in the Supreme Court of the Philippines again in the case of Pangilinan versus Cayetano. This was already decided as to should the Philippines cooperate in the ICC investigation. It was found by no less than our Supreme Court that we still have obligations to the ICC because we were a member from 2011 to 2019.
Okay. Now, in a separate interview, former President Duterte called the ICC probe an insult to the Philippines because it questioned his duty to protect the people. What's your reaction to that, attorney?
He's putting it entirely in a different way. Even the Senate and the House resolutions put it as if they are in defense of government policy. But that's not the point in this investigation. Right now, we are looking at why are there killings? If they so go that way, it would appear as if the Philippine policy, the Philippine war on drugs policy, resulted in deaths and that the ends justify the means. That's wrong in a sense that the killings have already been committed, and then who then should be accountable for them? If Duterte says that it was policy that compelled the killings, then there was something wrong with policy, and then definitely there would be a need for an investigation. If, on the other hand, their claim is that the killings were committed by abusive policemen, then there still has to be an investigation or a look into what happened as to why these abuses were enabled or why they happened. So either way, I still do believe that the investigation is necessary. If they do not see fit, then there are Filipino people, there are victims of the war on drugs from the ground who are calling upon international bodies, who are going to the international arena and fora because domestic bodies are not willing to do so.
Well, for Justice Secretary Boying Remulla, he said to the ICC, show us the evidence and we will prosecute. So dapat ba ICC ang magbigay ng evidence? I think it's sort of like the other way around. The ICC needs information and evidence from the Philippines. Is that how it works?
Well, that's right, Ria. There's entire world, a whole world of difference between the ICC processes and Philippine processes. And I do note that there would be an executive process, which is what the DOJ is doing, and then the court processes, our own judicial processes. So in this case, the ICC is a judicial entity that's conducting an investigation leading up to trial. That should be similar to the preliminary investigation that the DOJ should be conducting. However, in these cases, there are two different objectives. For the ICC, their objective is to see if there was policy leading up to these killings, if the killings on the ground are all connected. For the DOJ, it would appear as if they're looking for small fish, small fry. So they're looking for those who actually shot people on the ground. So you would have PO1, PO2, PO3 killing civilians, alleged drug addicts. I don't know whether by policy or whether by their individual motives. That would have to be seen. But for the DOJ, it would appear as if they're not looking into the policy if these killings are connected. And so from there's a difference in objectives, in purpose. How the ICC works should be complementary to Philippine or domestic processes. Now, this is a problem when the Philippines is not investigating anything. Right now, they said that they're investigating 52 cases, which pales in comparison to the 6,000 admitted killings in legitimate, quote-unquote, police operations. 52 out of 6,000 is just a drop in the bucket. And so the ICC is asking the Philippine government if they do have any sort of investigation or proceedings into these cases, into these incidents, and if they have so, submitted to the court. Actually, the 52 cases, the documentation as to this, I think has already been submitted by the Department of Justice and the Office of Solicitor General. This was what the Philippine government used to previously asked for the deferment of the investigation. Unfortunately, the ICC saw that this investigation is just shallow and it was just desk review. What the DOJ did was a desk review, and therefore inadequate to shield us or to shield the Philippines from from the exercise of jurisdiction of the ICC. And therefore, they are continuing in the investigation. And that is correct. What the ICC has will not come on all fours with what the Philippines would have.
All right, ma'am, we still have a lot to talk about, but we do need to take a short break. This is A Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanwatco Trillo. Our source today, ICC Assistant to Counsel Kristina Conti. Attorney, welcome back to the program. Now, before the break, you were saying that it seems that the DOJ and the ICC have differing goals, where the ICC wants to look at policy. The DOJ seems like it is going after individuals or small fish, as you said. Now, given this is a situation, how can the ICC move on with the investigation? Added to that, the fact that President Marcos has said that he's not going to cooperate either.
Well, the ICC's investigation seeks facts, information that they can source not only from the Philippine government, but from other bodies or offices in the Philippine government that would be willing to cooperate. Again, the government is not a monolith, and we're not just looking at the entire government answering to President Duterte. For one, I'm talking about the Commission on Human Rights, which is an independent constitutional body, which has pledged and said that they would be willing to cooperate with the ICC. I'm also looking at another body. Actually, it's a branch of government, the judiciary. The judicial branch of government has already decided in the case of Pangilinan versus Cayetano that the Philippines has obligations. And therefore, I would think it would be dissonant if they refuse to cooperate, or if they, when asked by the ICC, refuse to submit documents. I'm looking at these two institutions. So first, the judiciary. The judiciary has already asked for, in a case, the Supreme Court required the Philippine government to submit drug-related cases. If you remember, this is related to the case of Efren Murillo and the question of the constitutionality of Tokhang. The government was compelled to produce about 20,000 or about 7,000 incidents. These documents are with the Supreme Court, and currently, I think, has been passed on to the petitioners. Before the Commission on Human Rights are thousands of other cases. I think in their latest report, April 2022, they said that they have investigated 8,000 cases. So these documents would be available from government or, other branches of government that are not within the control of the president. And this is where we offer ourselves from the private sector, from non-government organizations. The victims have come to us and given us their documents. We would be more than willing and happy to share these with the ICC. So these alternative sources of the documents, of the information, is where the ICC can obtain their information and their evidence moving forward with the investigation and possible trial.
All right, so you're saying aside from tapping the CHR, the ICC can go to the judiciary, specifically the Supreme Court, who is holding these documents, and I guess the private sector and the families of the victims. Speaking of which, what about witnesses? How can the ICC get their own witnesses?
The ICC, in several of the cases, has been approached by witnesses. In this case, I do think that the ICC already has approached witnesses. I think in 2018, it was recorded that the ICC prosecutor then, Pato Bensuda, was in the Philippines for several fact-finding or discussions. I think at that time they had already identified witnesses. So it's two ways. Either the ICC approaches these witnesses or the witnesses come to the ICC. So for Rise Up for Life and for Rights and for the NUPL, we are willing to provide access to the ICC to the victims that we are in touch with. And if they so wish, they can tap us and our victims to be witnesses in the investigation or trial.
Now, Attorney, there's been talk of threats of arresting ICC probers if and when they come here. How does the ICC view this?
Well, I would suppose that for the ICC, this is actually this would be covered by one of the sections of the Rome Statute, would be crimes against the administration of justice. You're threatening investigators of a judicial body. Without basis, they would be arrested. That's the claim. Of course, we can't say that the arrest would be, the Philippines cannot say that the arrests would be on any ground or just on the ground that they would be entering the Philippines. That would be illegal and unjust. Now, of course, there would be trumped-up charges or any other politicization of the moves of the ICC. But come what may, right now, the point or the claim that they can be arrested at any time is baseless.
All right. Do you have any information, ma'am, as to when the ICC probers will come to the Philippines?
I cannot disclose as yet because the ICC does not confirm neither deny any steps as to their investigation, and I do not want to preclude or to um, impact their security measures in place. But in any case, I can say that the ICC has been active with their investigation efforts. And the decision of the ICC pre-trial chamber is clear that the investigation has to start right now. Now we're looking at the appeals chamber. So this is another set or another panel of judges who can decide on when or if this investigation should be suspended as yet. We are waiting for the pretrial brief of the Philippines, due within 21 days after they filed their appeal. I think this would fall within the end of the month or the first week of next month, to see if there is merit to the Philippines' request for suspension of the investigation. But as yet, the investigation should proceed and should be proceeding right now.
All right, ma'am, that is all we have time for. Thank you so much for speaking with us. That was ICC Assistant to Counsel Kristina Conti. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. You're watching CNN Philippines.